been in this stasis until I came here, and I somehow set you free?
I was awake, but at the same time I wasn't. Whatever the quiet man did after he woke me, it left me in this haze. I didn't see, I couldn't move, but I could hear, and I could feel.
That must have been horrible.
It was, and there were times where I just wished that he would finally end it.
Why is it that you call Isamo the Quiet Man?
Well, I did not know his true name until years after my awakening, and before that he hardly spoke. So this is what my mind always called him.
I still can't believe you're a Shaper.
Shaper. That's how the Quiet Man called me too. We called ourselves the cont'd.
I know, but how is it possible that you're still alive? I thought you were extinct.
Yes, so it seems. I was unaware of this until the Quiet Man told me.
But how did your people die? And how did you survive?
I do not know how my people died. Believe me, child, I have spent a long time wondering. As for your second question, it is a long story. I was one of the Yulas caste, the scientists, the scholars, the priests, and like many other Zalontep at that time, I was taken by the Scourge.
The Scourge?
A disease. It had been ravaging through our empire for over a decade at that time. It ate us up from the inside.
Most scholars who studied your people firmly believed that the Shapers had cured the world of all diseases.
Then they are wrong. We had found cures for many of them, yes. But even these were often only for the Yulas and the Zavas, the ruling castes. And there was no cure for the Scourge.
But you survived. How?
Through a ritual, an experiment. The idea was to freeze my body until a cure would be found. Looking back, I wonder why I was so eager to keep living. I was just a power-hungry woman who had no one to mourn her death. By the face of time, it's strange to tell you this. Millennia have passed, but some of the memories are still so lively, so real.
So you were a mage?
A member of the priest caste, yes. But this is not the time to share memories. Once we are free from this place, we will have all the time in the world to talk. And we will talk. There are so many things I need to know. About this world, about you.
How old were you when the Scourge infected you?
90 years. Half my lifespan was already gone.
Then the experiment worked?
So it seems. Only that when I woke up, I was here, bound to that altar, looking into the Quiet Man's eyes. Our minds do not seem to be so different. So I believe you can imagine how I felt. It was terrifying, like a nightmare, one that would never stop.
You said that my father created me. What is that supposed to mean?
I am not sure if I can even give you an answer to that. But I will try to explain. See, my child, the Quiet Man, Isamu, I do not think he ever considered me a living being. What he saw me as was a tool to the essence.
The essence?
The source of all magic. Your father's race, they are only able to access a glimpse, a twinkle from an endless sea. We, the Zalontep, were different. We have always been closer to the essence. We had understood how to harness it, and that had made us powerful.
Did you ever try to resist, to break free?
Of course, but it was pointless. I could not speak and I could not move, and even my magic could not aid me.
So, the essence is the place all magic comes from.
Yes, but there were and probably are many names for it. The essence is only what my people called it.
So, you're saying that my father wanted to use you to gain access to this essence?
Yes, he was obsessed with the idea of gaining power, and to him, I was the key. But what he was trying to do, transferring my aura, my powers onto himself, was impossible, and he realized that quickly.
Which is why he tried to find another way to gain access to your powers.
Yes, he tried transferring my energy to a talisman, to these flesh creatures he created, and countless other ways, but it was all in vain. These experiments went on for years, and even though I couldn't see and couldn't speak, I felt it all. Then he created you. His train of thought was simple. If my aura could not be transferred, it could be passed onto my offspring.
But how is that even possible? A shaper and a human?
It is possible. The way we conceive, how we bring forth new life, it is different from what you are used to.
How?
It's complicated, and I do not want to talk about it with my own child. What matters is it worked. Down here, on this altar, I gave life to you, to my first and only child.
So I am half shaper. How come it doesn't show?
Once again, this has to do with the way we conceive, but I do not want to talk about it. I hope you understand.
So this is where the nightmare comes from, isn't it?
What nightmare?
Ever since I was a child, I had these dreams. I think I saw this place, the creatures my father created, the images. They were so vivid, so real. But whenever I told Isamo about them, he just shrugged it off. I always felt they were connected to something that had happened a long time ago. Now I know.
Yes, that is possible. Quite often, our dreams remind us of the things we have long forgotten.
What happened then? What did Isamo do?
He took you away. For what purpose, I do not know. But it is evident that it did not work. Even through you, he could not obtain access to the essence. As for what happened afterward, that is a question you are more fit to answer than I am. And once you freed me, I want you to tell me all.
But I still don't understand. What is the story behind that song? You said that you called out to me so that I could find and save you.
Yes, I have done nothing else since your father took you from me. But it was only a short time ago that I finally started to feel that I could sense your presence somewhere out there. Thus, I tried to focus my thoughts onto you and send them out into the world. Telepathy, as you call it. The song must have been the way the dark corners of my mind expressed my emotions.
The dark corners of your mind? What do you mean by that?
Well, every spirit has two sides. One that the mind can see, and the other one that remains hidden. If the visible one is a puddle, the invisible is an endless sea.
My father died a year ago. Could this be the reason that we only started hearing the song 6 moons ago?
He is dead?
Yes. He started a rebellion against our kingdom and fell in the final battle.
I I see. I always knew it would come to that, you know. His hunger, this glare in his eyes. I knew it would consume him eventually.
How does that make you feel?
That is a good question. I do not know. I expected to feel relief, joy, triumph even. But instead, I feel nothing.
So his death broke whatever spell he had imposed on you. And because of that, your telepathy finally carried through the walls of this place.
That is the only explanation. Yes.
So it was telepathy. But how come only certain people heard you? Only mages?
Is it not obvious? Because having magic means standing close to the essence, and only those who stand close are receptive to my telepathy. I did not know the form my thoughts would take on, but it seems that for us, it was a song. One that finally led you here, to free your mother from her suffering. There is poetry in that, isn't there?
I think there's something you don't know.
What do you mean?
Your song. It was lethal to everybody who wasn't gifted with magic. I don't know how to say this, but people died. Lots of people. This is why I'm here. To end the bloodburn, as we've started to call it.
Bloodburn? In the name of the sun. I didn't know.
I just don't understand. Why did the song kill people without magic? How is this possible?
I don't know. Maybe it was too much for their minds to bear. Forgive me, I don't know what to say.
But it's over now, isn't it? I found you.
Yes, it should be, but... Oh, please, you have to believe me. I didn't know. All I wanted was to have you back. To... Wait. There's someone here.
What are you... No!
I'm sorry. It was necessary.
What did you do?
What do you think? I fulfilled Aener's prophecy. Searching for a cure, the pariah seeks the truth. A lost mother will be found and awoken from her slumber, and thus allows me to receive her essence.
You knew about this? You knew about my mother?
Yes, I did. I knew that the bloodburn was caused by a Shaper mother looking for her lost child. But what I didn't know was where to find her. So I had to find the child instead, which I did. The pariah. Though I certainly did not expect it to be Asamo Tahar's son.
But why? What for?
Isn't it obvious? Because I needed her essence. The key to the Archfire, as we call it. Through its power, I will be able to open the gates and to allow Aenir to return. I'm sorry, Tahar. Your mother, she will now serve the greater good. I hope you understand.
Understand? You bloody killed her!
She is not dead. Her body may be, but not her mind. Inside that amulet, she's still alive. It's what your father had always tried to accomplish, but never did.
Where are the others? What did you do to them?
Put to sleep. Don't worry, I didn't kill them.
If you...
I did not kill them. As defilers, they will be put to justice, but that has not been done yet.
I don't get it. You did all this only to get access to the essence? To the Archfire?
No. The bloodburn had to be stopped. Unlike what you might believe, I do care about the people of Io, just as the All-Father cares about all of his children. So I stopped it, as Aenir ordered me to. But he also told me something else. That purifying the world, freeing it from defilers, and making people see their sins is only the first step. The second one requires power. A lot of it.
Why?
It's called the opening of the gates. A rift. A portal, one through which Aenir can step back into this world. And this is what he chose me for, his most loyal servant. He needed the Archfire's power, and he knew the Pariah and his mother were the key.
And now, what comes next?
Your role in this ends. That is what will happen next. Once again, I am truly sorry. But the Allfather's visions were clear. The Pariah needs to die after the mother has been found.
I'd love to see you try.
You will.
It's over, Lycain.
No. Believe me, it isn't. Time to put your mother's magic to the test.
What the? What is this?
Ellen's reins. Hey, quick, over here! Yes, yes, just like that. Stay with us, Corporal. Stay with us.
What's the matter? What happened?
Tahar's awake.
Lord Marshal Arendir. What in blazes are you doing here?
It's a long story. But I'm here as an ally.
Yes, and there will be plenty of time for the lengthy explanations later. First, I want to know how you're feeling, Tahar. Sorry to say it like this, but you look like shit.
Charming as always. But I'm fine. Just dizzy. What happened? I just remember Lycain. And my mother.
Your mother? You mean the Shaper?
Yes. It's hard to explain. She was in some kind of stasis when my father found her, and my father used her for his experiments. I don't know how to say this, but the bloodburn, it was her doing. When my father died, she tried to call out to me by telepathy. That's what caused the plague.
All right, I think his head wound is worse than we thought.
It's the truth, Iria. And Lycain didn't only want me to stop the bloodburn. He needed me to lead him to my mother, so he could use her as a source for the Archfire.
Well, that's a lot to take in, I guess. But why your mother? You're speaking metaphorically, right?
I'm not. She is my mother.
All right. Start over, from the beginning. What happened when you walked into that chamber? I'm sorry, but that sounds absurd. Utterly absurd.
Well, I doubt he's lying, King Regent. And actually, it makes sense. It explains a lot, for example, why he could activate the portals, enter Mullendir, and why he had this vision. Though I have to admit, it's not what I expected from our little trip to the Eye. Not at all.
Speaking of which, how did we get out of that dungeon?
Well, as you know, I was unconscious too, so I can only tell you what the soldiers told me. But after that explosion, it was as if the skies had started raining fire. Lycain's soldiers panicked and rushed into the dungeon to save him. It must have also alarmed our troops who were waiting at the borders. They marched in and used the confusion to get us out too. I mean, at the time, the Purity still thought we were allies and vice versa. In other words, we got lucky.
Neither did I. But now it's my turn. Why in blazes are you here, Lord Marshal? And how long was I out for?
It's just anger now. I think we've moved past the titles. And to answer your question, you were out for 5 weeks.
5 weeks?
Yes. To be honest, if your vital signs hadn't remained steady, we would have assumed you were dead.
Which leads us to your mother. You mentioned something about Lycain banishing her into some kind of amulet?
Yes. He somehow absorbed her spirit to gain access to the Archfire. That's what my father always tried, and why he created me in the first place.
And I assume, by Archfire, you're talking about some extremely powerful source of magic.
The source of all magic. Yes.
So the theories are true. Well, at least now we have an explanation.
An explanation of what?
Well, the Harbinger has gone rampant. Briefly put, the Purity of Light has taken over almost all of Leonida. The Eye, Greyfell, Greykeep, everything.
Greykeep? How is that possible?
They were already in the keep when Lacane gave the order, and we simply didn't expect it. It wasn't even a fight. It was a massacre. And yes, I know what you're about to say. That it's my fault, because I tolerated the Purity in the first place. And you're right. I've made mistakes, and hundreds, thousands of people had to pay the price.
What about the Queen? Is she...
She's alive. The Harbinger knows he can't kill her, because if he does and word gets out, then he might lose the common folk's support. According to our spies, the Queen's Guard and the Purity have struck some kind of bargain.
Wait, so the Purity controls the keep, and the Queen's Guard just plays along?
Yes, it sounds absurd, I know. But the Queen's Guard first responsibility lies with the safety of the Queen. Whatever is necessary to protect her, they do it. Though I doubt Lacane's long-term plan sees the Queen at his side, which is just another reason to hurry.
But why? Why start a war against all of Northander?
To prepare Io for the arrival of Aeonir. You remember that nonsense his priests always preach? How we're the reason that Aeonir left us?
Yes. That's why they want to clear the world of sin and mages. Of defilers.
Well, it seems that they've spiced up their idea a little since it was taking too long. It's not just mages they kill anymore, but everybody who doesn't convert to their religion. Soldiers, women, men. They all get to choose. Join the Purity and accept the light, or be killed on the spot.
Shit.
Words of wisdom.
Be that as it may, your recovery couldn't be more timely.
How did you even get here?
Later, Tar. I'll tell you all you want to know, but not now.
What about the charges? Do you still consider me a traitor?
Is that still important?
It is to me.
That's very honorable of you, Tar. Given the recent events, your sentence has been lifted. You are pardoned. And if that is your wish, you can be reinstated as a corporal of the Northander army. That, and my apology, is all I can offer.
That would mean a lot.
Good. However, we cannot make this official until Greykeep is reclaimed.
Since you saved me from the dungeon, what about my mother's body? Is she...
She's here in the Nexus. We saved her, but she seems to be in some kind of a coma. For a while we thought it was the same as your condition, but now that you've told us the full story, it makes sense. Her body is still functioning, but Lacane has stolen her spirit.
One more reason to stop him.
I was hoping you'd say that. Maybe we'll even get our chance sooner than expected. Lacane is marching towards us as we speak.
What about the charges? Do you still consider me a traitor?
Is that still important?
It is to me.
That's very honorable of you, Tar. Given the recent events, your sentence has been lifted. You are pardoned. Good. However, we cannot make this official until Greykeep is reclaimed.
For what it's worth, the encounter with my mother also changed something in me. I feel... different.
Elaborate.
Well, when I awoke my mother, it did something to me. She called this... the melding.
Less fancy words, please. What did it do?
Well, I think it allows me to control a part of the Archfire too. Just like the Harbinger does.
Finally, some good news.
Indeed. Anything that can help us battle Lacane will help. But whatever it is, I doubt it will allow us to stop LeCain with a thought alone. Or will it?
No. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly it changed.
Lord Marshal.
Speaking of Nor,
The Purity. They are here, as you said. What are your orders, sir?
put up defenses all around the perimeter and protect the Nexus at all cost. How many are they?
Hundreds, sir. And House Utran is supporting them too. Your sister is leading them.
Myra?
I'm afraid so.
Wait, you're saying that House Utran is working for the Purity of Light now? And they're led by Lady Myra Utran?
As I said, yes. It could be anything, though. Maybe LeCain forced her to comply.
Then make sure that she does not get harmed. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Good. There needs to be an explanation for this. Either way, we need to fend them off. Tahar, are you able to fight?
I think so. Yes.
Good. Then you're back in charge. Let's head out.
Huh?
Can you tell me more about your craft? About demonology?
And why's that? Thinking about a career change?
I'm just curious.
Are you? I hope you do realize that demonology isn't a forbidden school for no reason. Most people who mess with it die. But sure, if you have questions, ask.
Let's start with the basics. What's the core principle of demonology?
It's simple. You study demons and their powers, and bind them to your will. And thus you gain access to their powers. Take a devourer. Once you've studied and subdued her to your will, you can access her strength. And I'm not talking about merely summoning her. You can channel her powers.
Interesting. Thanks for the insight.
Sure.
Yes, Corporal? How can I help?
Well, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. How did you become an assassin?
Why do you want to know?
No particular reason, I suppose. I'm just curious.
Huh. I see. In short, my mother sold me. And after an incident, my owner noticed my talents. He started to train me to carry out jobs for him. And when I was 17, he had an accident. I've been an independent assassin ever since.
Your mother sold you? But where? Why?
Because she needed the coin, and already had 4 children to feed. And as for your first question, where there is demand, there is a market. Particularly in a big city like Greyfell. It's not as uncommon as you might believe.
So, who is this man who bought you?
I won't talk about that. This chapter of my past is done, and I want it to stay buried.
I understand.
I'm glad you do. So, tell me, Pariah, how did you become the Betrayer's child in the first place? It's rare for a child to defy their own father.
That's simple. My father was a monster, and I had to stop him.
A monster? Interesting. What makes you call him that?
He was power hungry. He said his war was about protecting the mages, but it wasn't. All he cared about was becoming more powerful.
Oh. I understand. Either way, is there anything else you need?
Tahar, what is it?
There's one thing I've been wondering about. After we parted at the hideout, what exactly happened? How did you and my father part ways?
Good question. I guess it all started with the relics, the tomes. You remember them, right?
Yes. He was hoping they'd help him to win the war.
Exactly. And there was this one moment when he found the 5th tome. When I came to a realization. You see, there were all those bodies. Enemies, but also many of our people. We had shed so much blood, Tahar. But Asamo, he didn't care. If there was any grief in his eyes, I couldn't see it. And as dramatic as it may sound, that's when I finally understood that we had lost our cause. This wasn't about ideals, about us mages anymore. It was about him. Whatever his intentions had become.
And that's the reason Zane, Helena, and I betrayed him. Come on, do you really want to tell us you didn't see that before? The tomes were all about power.
I knew it was about power. But Asamo always told us that he would use that power for the greater good. And it's not that far off. I mean, can't you imagine? With the power of the tomes, we could have united the world. Even made it a better one. No more persecution of the deviant. No more wars, no more suffering.
Maybe. But my father certainly wasn't the one who should lead it.
Maybe not.
Tahar, may I help you with something?
I'd still like to know more about how you ended up in Nortender.
Bugger and blast. Here I was hoping you'd forgotten. All right, I'll tell you. But only under one condition.
Yes?
That I get to ask you a personal question too.
Then we have a deal. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Fair enough. I was born in the Windwall Mountains. Sorry, still sorting out my thoughts. It's been a long time since I last told this story to anyone. Alright, one more time. As you can imagine, I was born in Windwall, a child of the rocks.
Come again?
A true dwarf, as some would say. Born in the buried city, not on the outside as the traders and farmers are. My family was quite privileged. Not nobility, but my mother and father led a big smeltery which supplied one of the finest smithies. Moon silver weaponry. Ever heard of it?
I think so. The commanders of the Royal Army use them.
Figures. Well, my childhood was a rather unremarkable one. I had two brothers and a sister, and even though I was the oldest child, I was always the most quiet one. I learned quickly how to wield an axe, and I still know how to do it, but I never took pleasure in it. The same goes for my parents' craft. For some reason, Nihalf had given me a talent for metallurgy, but not the desire to use it. Instead, my biggest love was always made with ink. Books.
And I assume your parents didn't approve of that.
Oh no, they didn't mind. I had 3 siblings who could do the job as well as I, so the future of our family was secured. On the contrary, they were quite accepting, which wasn't usual amongst dwarves, especially not those in Windwall.
Are the surface dwarfs different?
Depends. There are some who were very open-minded. For example, the traders who get around a lot. On the other hand, there are some who were as ignorant as the Windwallers.
Dwarves are traditionalists, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they are. They love their brawls, they love their ale, and they love their metal crafting. And they never miss a chance to tell the outside world just how much they do.
Well, to be honest, when I think of dwarven culture, that's exactly what comes to my mind.
See? And that's the problem. There's always diversity in every race. There are soft-hearted orcs, there are elves who don't give a damn about the white tree, and there are humans with... well, you get the point. What I'm trying to say is, many dwarves love living these traditions, but there are some like me who just don't fit in. This is one of the reasons why I appreciate you and this group so much, Tahar. Aenir's tools or not, we're all pariahs, in one way or another.
So, what happened? Why did you leave Windwall?
I'm getting there, Tahar. When I came of age, I found work in the Windwall Library. That time was also when I deepened my knowledge of the Shapers. I devoured all the books there were, and bought whatever writings the merchants brought in. They smiled at me, talked of me as the strange bird, but I didn't care. The more I read, the more spellbound I became, and the more I dreamed of journeying through Io to solve all those mysteries not yet uncovered.
Are there Shaper ruins in the Windwall Mountains?
Hardly. And those that are there are buried beneath miles and miles of rock. Impossible to access without a huge expedition.
Huh. And what kept you from doing just that?
Well, 2 things. First of all, my attachment to my family. Secondly, Gilak.
Gilead?
My, partner.
You had a partner?
Yeah. We met... I'd rather not go into detail too much. Fact is, we lived together for 6 years. He was very dear to me. Let's put it that way.
What are dwarven families like?
Similar to their human counterparts, I believe. Having family and offspring is considered to be very important, especially if you're of noble blood.
But living with someone of the same sex is acceptable?
Well, yes and no. If you do, you don't talk about it, and you should make sure to find yourself a wife or a husband to found a proper family, eventually, and bring new children of stone into the world, even if that family is just a charade. If you don't do that, you're frowned upon. There's even a word for a childless dwarf, man or woman. Galrag, which roughly translates as dusty boulder. Very amusing, I know.
That's sad.
Well, I doubt it's going to change anytime soon. And once again, the Shapers were different in that regard. As long as you stay within the boundaries of your caste, you can do as you pleased.
I understand. But something happened, didn't it?
Yeah. The Blackstone Rebellion. Ever heard of it?
Yes. A coup, wasn't it?
Yeah. An attempt to overthrow the royal house. It was bound to fail from the beginning. The rebels were anti-traditionalist and wanted to establish a new order, where it's the people who have the power, not the nobility. Gilak was one of these rebels.
Oh.
Yeah. At first, before the coup, they tried to raise awareness by giving underground speeches. A noble endeavor, but not at all thought through. Most dwarves just don't care about politics as long as they can have their mugs of ale. First, he didn't ask me to participate, but the more sour things went, the more he started pushing me. At one point, we had a fight. when he asked me to steal money from my family to support the movement. It was terrible. Finally, push came to shove and he told me of the coup. He knew that despite my occupation, I was a remarkable fighter and Earthshaper, which is why he asked me to fight alongside him. You can make a difference, that's what he said. By me, Half, he was just so naive. He really thought it would be like in the old legends, a group of courageous dwarfs fighting their way to Algrim Castle with me at his side. I just don't... Forgive me. It's strange to talk about it like this.
It's okay. Thank you for trusting me.
Yeah, sure. You can imagine how torn I was. I knew he'd die if the coup took place, but I also knew that I couldn't stop him. When I told him he was mad, he called me a coward, a delusional bookworm, who'd rather spend his whole life dreaming about the past and changing the present. And then he left. The next day, I found him beheaded by a royal guard. They didn't even make it to the castle stairs.
Why didn't you tell the guard about the movement's plans? They could have stopped him.
Yeah, they could have. Only to execute him and all his friends the next morrow. Tahar, believe me, I thought about this quite a lot. About what I could or should have done. And do you want to know the saddest part of it?
What?
I came to the conclusion that I did nothing wrong. He had his mind set. And nothing I could have said would have changed what had been about to happen. In the end, there's only so much you can do.
What happened then?
I ran. Not only because I'd rather have died than return to that empty house of ours, but also because they would have arrested me too. Our relationship wasn't a secret, and in their eyes, I was as eccentric as Gilad and his friends. And we all know how dangerous eccentrics are, don't we? I left my family a letter, telling them not to come after me. Bought a horse and rode as far as it would take me before collapsing. It was 9 years ago. I haven't returned ever since.
What about your family? Did you ever hear from them again?
Not directly. Every now and then, I return to a big city to find a dwarf who can tell me about Windwall. But the thought of returning, I don't know. I know it's cruel toward them, but I just don't think I could ever bear setting foot in those cursed stone halls again.
I see. And since then, you've been studying the Shapers?
Yeah. If there really is, as people say, a silver lining to everything, then this would be it. Finally doing what I was too afraid to do back in Windwall. Living my dream. Though the price I paid for it was high. And you know what, Tahar?
What?
There's a third reason to my fascination with the Shapers I haven't told you about yet. It's Gilak. Stupid as it may sound, there's a part of me who wants to prove him wrong. To show him that the past has value. That it can guide us towards a better world.
I see. Well, thank you for sharing this, Iskrim. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It felt good to talk about it. I didn't expect that. But you're not off the hook yet. The question, remember?
Right. Shoot.
Your past is even more unusual than mine. Growing up with a man like Isamu Tahar as your father? Without a mother? And then the whole thing with the Mage Rebellion? I know you've been through a lot. Now, I was wondering, if you could trade that past you've had for a different one, would you do it?
I wouldn't.
That surprises me, to be honest. But I think I understand. Either way, pleasure speaking with you. Hope this wasn't too grim for you, but then again, you asked for it. Give me some time now, will you?
Sure. Take care, Iskrim. Interesting. How did you become a shapeshifter?
I was chosen.
And how does that work?
Complicated. Are you sure you want to hear the whole story? Time isn't exactly on our side.
It isn't. But the more I know about your abilities, the better. You're fighting for me, after all.
We're not fighting for you, Tahar. We are fighting alongside each other. That's a big difference.
Alongside, then.
Good. Let's make it short then. Shapeshifting is a gift of Zarek. One that only the best of his shamans are granted.
And how does one become a shaman?
He has to be chosen by a tribe's chieftain. You see, magical talent is a lot rarer among orcs than it is among humans or elves. In my tribe, there was only me and Rain. We both discovered our talent by chance. I, when I was 9, and put out a fire that had broken out in my family's hut. Everybody was asleep. Even the damn fool that had been tasked to stand guard. When I woke up, the entire room was in flames.
So it was your magic that woke you?
No. I needed to take a piss.
Makes sense. What happened then?
I panicked and started screaming, as every child would have. However, the only thing that did was make me inhale the fumes even quicker. My vision blurred and I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was on a bed of hay in the village shaman's tent, and everybody was staring at me, as if I was Zarek incarnate. I asked what happened and they told me. Just when I had lost consciousness, it had started to rain. Not just a little. It was a full-fledged storm, a deluge from the skies. With not even a minute, all the tents in the village had been flooded. The fire wasn't extinguished right away, but was quickly put out by the other orcs that had been awoken by the storm.
That's impressive.
Well, it was also my last successful weather ritual. If it hadn't been, Barker Gore would be all meadows and forests by now. According to my brothers, I had an orange shimmer in my eyes and was muttering strange words when they took me to the shaman. She told me that was a clear sign that I was gifted and that I had fire in my blood, as my tribe likes to say. Of course, it changed my life entirely. All of a sudden, I was my Cal's pride. It was strange, not just for me, but also for my kin.
How did your family take it?
Well, they were proud. But they also weren't sure how to treat me anymore. For example, my father stopped taking me out on the hunt because he was afraid that something might happen. Which is ridiculous. Shaman or not, an orc who can't wield a spear isn't an orc at all. Also, my siblings became withdrawn. Jealousy, of course, but also estrangement. All of a sudden, their baby brother had become this strange being, which had apparently been bitten by Zarek himself.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Don't be dramatic. There's worse fates than being the one gifted orc among thousands.
Interesting. And who is this Rain you mentioned earlier?
Did I? Well, that's complicated. I don't want to talk about it.
All right.
We should get moving.